All right, guys, so we're gonna finish the digestive system notes by talking about the large intestine and its jobs. All right, so what are the function of the large intestine? So it provides a space to manufacture vitamins. And that is achieved by tapping the actions of bacteria like E. coli that are present in your large intestine. And then the other big job is we reabsorb water. Okay, so we want to reabsorb some water and not let it go as part of our stool. So this is a thing, okay? E. coli are bacteria. They are present in your large intestine. We have a symbiotic relationship with E. coli. They live off some of our fecal material, and from them we gain the ability to manufacture certain vitamins, certain B vitamins, for example. So the reabsorption of water is also extremely important because by reabsorbing some of the fluid out of our stool, this will help in some ways to prevent dehydration. You're conserving fluid. All right, so your large intestine is divided into different areas. So you have the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine, followed by what we traditionally would call the colon, and then the rectum. So your large intestine is kind of a series of, looks like an upside down. So you're going to come in from the ileum, all right, and then you have the appendix, the cecum, and then the colon proper, and then the colon's going to make like an S curve, and that'll terminate at the rectum. Okay, all told, the colon is about 5 feet long or so. So there's going to be another valve right here that's called the ileocecal valve. It's going to control things passing from the ileum of the small intestine into the cecum of the large intestine. Okay, so our appendix. All right, so appendix is part of the lymphatic system. It's going to kind of filter bacteria through here to kind of make sure that it's not perforating or infiltrating any part of the large intestinal wall. This is the cecum, and then we go up, ascend, across, that's the transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon because it makes an S shape, and that's going to terminate at your rectum. All along the way as we're moving through the colon, which again is going to be regulated by musculature in the wall of the colon, you'll have the ability to reclaim or recapture some of the water out of the stool and put it back into your circulatory system. Okay, I'm going to touch upon this for a minute. When someone has appendicitis, it means that there's been an obstruction, and now bacteria that filter in cannot escape, and so now they multiply inside your appendix, and you have a condition called appendicitis. Okay, so when someone has appendicitis, it means they have inflammation of the appendix. How do you know you have appendicitis? You have pain, sometimes fever. All right, so when someone has appendicitis, the issue that we're concerned about is if the appendix happens to rupture, then you would have bacteria present in the appendix now spread throughout the peritoneal cavity, which is not desirable. So if someone has appendicitis, we simply remove the appendix and maybe have to follow up with antibiotics, or depending on the level of infection, perhaps just antibiotics. But more often than not, you can remove the appendix because you do have the ability to live without it. Okay. All right, so we have two issues associated with changes in GI motility that can lead to changes in how much water has been reabsorbed out of the fecal matter as it moves through the colon. So we have constipation and diarrhea. Okay. When someone has constipation, it means they've had a decrease in GI motility. GI motility is slowed down significantly. And because GI motility has slowed down significantly, too much water is being pulled out of the fecal material moving back into the circulatory system. So what you get is, when someone is constipated, is you get the presence of very dry, hard stool. that is then difficult to pass. Okay, the danger here is we need to be able to pass stool through the colon, the rectum, and out the back door, so you don't want there to be an issue with impaction. With diarrhea, it's the opposite problem. You have very high, very fast-moving GI motility, and because things are going so quickly through that part of the GI tract, you're not really absorbing any water out of that fecal material, so what winds up happening there is you're passing this very watery stool, okay? So then we get watery stool. Now, the issue here is, of course, if you're losing a lot of that water, persistent diarrhea can put you at risk for dehydration. You really have to match intake to offset this, but for some people who have difficulty matching intake, it could potentially lead to dehydration, which can be life-threatening, okay? Why is GI motility changed? It could be any number of things. It could be something dietary, it could be medicine that you've taken that can cause either constipation or diarrhea, depending on what type of medication that you're taking. It can be a change in the presence of fiber in your diet that can shift GI motility a little bit. So there's lots of reasons why someone could have constipation or diarrhea. And then, of course, when you're talking about diarrhea, is it something reoccurring? Is it a persistent state where you've had diarrhea for days or weeks or months? All right. When we want to finally defecate, okay, so we have feces. Feces is semi-solid waste that's going to be stored temporarily in the rectum. The rectum is a pouch that will kind of expand and give you information to tell you that your rectum is full and it's time to defecate, okay? What you will defecate is called fecal material or feces. What is feces made of? I know this is the question on everybody's mind today. So, it does have some water in it. It has bacteria. The E. coli that are present in the large intestine kind of get sloughed off when you defecate. And then, of course, you have non-digested material, anything you couldn't break down. So, for example, things that contain a lot of cellulose, like fiber, because we cannot break down cellulose, we don't have the correct enzyme to do so, that would be considered non-digestible material, and so will move through the colon, and it'll be part of your fecal matter, okay? How things move through the anal canal. All right, so when the rectum becomes full, then we have to pass through two anal sphincters. You have your internal anal sphincter. So remember, the internal anal sphincter, sphincters are rings of muscle tissue, as we've discussed. This one is made of smooth muscle, which means you don't have any conscious control over it opening. So when there's pressure in the rectum, that sphincter is going to open, then we're going to drop down feces, and it'll encounter another sphincter. That's your external anal sphincter. Thankfully, that one is skeletal muscle. So because it is skeletal, whoops. So again, it's still muscle tissue, but a different type of muscle tissue, but because it is skeletal muscle tissue, it is voluntary. And the beauty of that is you actually get voluntary conscious control over when you defecate. So why do babies need diapers? Because when a baby is born, they don't have the timing down, they don't have their musculature perhaps is not well developed to allow for them to control the opening and closing of their external anal sphincter, and so we put them in a diaper until they can kind of develop and gain some of that control. Sometimes as people get older, their musculature gets kind of weak, and so you lose that control again, and then sometimes we need assistance with diapers as we age as well. Okay, that's going to do it for the digestive system. Next set of videos will be all about urinary.